This week, we've got a fabulous show for you in store. Let me tell you, Joe McCray from Strategic Security is going to be here. Doug White's going to be doing a technical segment on the Forensics Toolkit. And in our stories of the week, I had this fear, I had this nightmare that we would talk about embedded security and we would give it a horrible acronym and we'd be forced to talk about it still, and it would still be a huge problem, and no one would fix anything to do with embedded device security, and then everyone would start writing about it and getting it wrong. In my nightmare, I woke up like this morning and realized that my nightmare had come true. So we're going to spend some time talking about that and a whole bunch more stories. So all that and more on this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
Brought to you by Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous security monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. The average time between being hacked and realizing you've been hacked is 1 year. Can you afford to let an intruder roam your network for that long? Can your company weather the fallout when this comes to light? Black Hills Information Security can help find the bad guys in your network and train you to do it yourself. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a hunt teaming engagement can help you find a persistent threat in your network. The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer certification training and research. Visit sans.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offers.
Welcome back to the show for the new year. First, I'd like to introduce you to a man that could not pull off this shirt, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Now see, there's where I beg to differ with you, Larry, because I bet I could pull off that shirt, and I bet you would like it.
Of all the flavors, you chose to be salty.
Right. I laughed at my own joke, and I laughed at your joke.
All right.
This is just going to be a wild
Oh, my gosh.
ride.
We've hardly started having any.
We haven't even
beverages?
really. We just started. This is pretty good stuff. Oh, sorry. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. Mr. Larry Pesh is here in studio. And look, he's got cats on his shirt.
I know. Look at this. Like,
I thought they were your
fabulous.
cats.
No, this is just a whole bunch of surprised cats.
Random cat? Are they lol cats or are they
No,
just
they're just surprised cats.
surprise? Oh, they're specifically. It's a surprised cat
shirt. Yes.
I gotcha.
Yes. It's epic.
Cats either look surprised or angry.
Yes.
There's really no other expression.
Or asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes both. Yeah.
Oh,
next week I'll wear another good shirt with cats on it. You like it?
More cat. Stay tuned next week. More cat shirts.
Yes.
On the lines via Skype, Mr. Jeff Mann is with us. Welcome,
Mann.
Jeff. Mr. Mann.
Greetings, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Mr. Joff Thayer, who's not on video because Apple sucks, apparently. Joff Thayer's.
Well, yeah, g'day, everybody. I just would like to remind you that in Australia we call those pussycats. Okay, that's enough said.
Thank you so much for that interesting fact. A couple of quick announcements. IT Pro has an announcement. They're introducing a new membership level on February 1st. All current premium members as of February 1st will be granted the highest membership level available. Sign up today, itpro.tv/Security Weekly, and use the code SW30, which I believe still saved gets you 30% off for life.
Damn.
It does. The producers are going, it does, it does, Paul. It does. InfoSec World. Your 10% off discount code is OS17-SW. Gives you 10% off the InfoSec World conference, which is happening. What does it say on there? Does it say the date on there? April
3rd through 5th.
April 3rd through the 5th. Thank you, Jeff.
It's there. It's really small.
It's really, yeah, I
In
can't really.
Champions Gate, Florida.
Thank you,
At the Omni Orlando Resort. And I'm assuming most of our audience can read this as well.
Yes,
They
yes. If they're
probably
watching the video, yes, they can. If they're just listening to the audio, probably not.
They might be able to through the powers of
And just for everybody's edification, it is not called PCI World. It is actually called InfoSec World.
Yes, it is InfoSec World. We've partnered with InfoSec World in the past, and we're happy to do that again in 2017. It's going to be a really fun conference. We'll be out there. We'll be in the vendor area where we'll have a booth, and we're not going to be selling Hack Naked T-shirts. Do you believe this?
You're going to give them away for free.
No, we're not going to have any Hack Naked T-shirts.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Really?
We're going to be doing podcasts in the booth because
Nice.
that's what we do. Yeah, fully clothed, mind you, fully clothed.
I have nothing but love for Jeff, of course, on the PCI comment.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as somebody else brings it up first, I'm okay.
Like to introduce our very special guest for this evening. No stranger to the Security Weekly show, Mr. Joe McCray from Strategic Security is here. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, how you guys doing? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. It's wonderful to have you here this evening, Joe. I wanted to get caught up with you and just see what you're always working on something interesting. And you always have an interesting take on things. I still have fond memories of the time we spent in Belgium as well. So eating waffles and drinking beer.
Yeah. And thanks for informing me that I'm no longer the token black guy at security conferences. I appreciate
It's a
that.
whole new diversify. I am very appreciative of the diversity, celebrate the diversity that our industry has grown into. I'm like, dude, you've like totally shed that title. Like, we can't call you that anymore.
Shed the title.
I was still stuck on the comment of fond time we had at Belgium. Do tell.
Well,
or
there
maybe
was
do
no-
not tell.
It wasn't, well, at least that I can remember, because I did drink a lot of beer.
Doable.
There was no jumping on the bed naked as the Dave Kennedy that one time with it. Well,
It wasn't exactly jumping.
well,
on the
it
bed
wasn't
naked.
just one time is just what we like to
More
tell
like
people.
bouncing.
What was that thing that they made you do? You got on stage and you had to like,
I was doing the janitor. That was the
yeah, you had to do these like stories. I don't know. It was
No,
like this
it was-
crazy drunk game. We had to
slide.
get on stage and do all these stories, and it was like you did this like milking janitor thing where you like took this broom and oh man.
No, that was I was the present. We had to give random present like slide share roulette or
yes.
your PowerPoint roulette, and I got the presentation. It was like,
roulette, that's what it was.
yeah, I had to give the present. My random one they chose for me was how to have a threesome, like how to approach your spouse about having a threesome.
Yes.
Like you can't not win with that title. And then they had this slide with like all these different positions to try, and one was the janitor. And I don't know if it was Joe or someone else was like, "Can you give us an example of what the janitor looks like?" And that is forever ingrained in Joe's brain.
Jeez. See, I thought that was when you just batted up and cleaned up and played cleanup.
It's something to do with a mop. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow. All
You
right.
ever have one of those moments that's like a 2 drops of pee moment in your life? Like you're laughing so hard, it's 2 drops of pee. It was one of those kind of moments. Like trying to say you had to be there just doesn't quite do it. Like
Doesn't even
2
cut it.
drops of pee.
Wow.
God.
Wow.
Fond memories.
I'm just going to now picture Joe McCray with 2 drops of
That's
pee.
where I know Joe from, that commercial of
Wow.
the black guy talking about adult depends.
That's right. Everybody needs Depends when they watch my presentations, just so, in case you're wondering.
I'm writing that down. PowerPoint
pass them
roulette.
out at
I'm
the
writing that down.
We got to do PowerPoint roulette again. Maybe we should do that for the episode 500 day.
Yes.
That is a fantastic idea.
You know, I think I've done that at DerbyCon at one point. It's
Yes,
an
you did.
awfully
Yes.
fun game.
You did. I remember
is.
because I was there.
That's
You were
fun.
wasted.
Anyway, so Joe, What are you doing these days? You're working at Secure Ninja, is that? And you have your own thing? Like, give us a little update on your career here.
Okay, so definitely still working at Secure Ninja. I'm the Chief Technology Officer there. Cool title. And I've really been working really hard on trying to create a new website. It's called InfoSec Addicts. So InfoSec Addicts will be launching next week, infosecaddicts.com. And the whole concept behind it is just to have a place where people can learn and train and teach each other and mentor each other for deep technical stuff. And I mean, like, extremely deep technical stuff. There aren't too many places on the internet where you can kind of go from zero to hero in either offensive or defensive or scripting. So I just kind of felt like, make something that's for those of us who are real addicts, like people who I do this because I like it. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to get, the latest certification or some different kind of job. I really have social issues. That's why I do security. So I need a place where more like-minded people can hang out and do the same thing.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I've always admired your passion, Joe. When you were talking about SQL injection, I'm like, Joe, how did you learn all that stuff? And he's like, well, I took this database class. Was it which database class was it? Was it Oracle?
I took an Oracle 10G class. That was a bad experience. So the instructor got so mad at me because every time he would write a command on the board, I would find a website on the web. I probably shouldn't be saying this. I'd find a website on the web and do the command with SQL injection. And I would be asking him questions like, okay, was this a version dependent command? Like, does this command work on Oracle 9i? Like, does it only work in 10G versus 11G? And he would get so mad. He would be like, well, Joe, why aren't you doing the labs? I'd be like, I'm doing the labs. Yeah. I'm just doing other servers on the internet. He would get so freaking mad at me, and I'd be like, look, I'm doing it with my mobile broadband. I'm not using the school internet. Yeah. Like, calm down.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
Seriously.
So InfoSec Addicts, so how does it work? It's interesting. I talk about this in one of my more recent talks that I've developed about how to get into the security industry and how to find a mentor and get a mentor. So it's very timely that you're launching this project, Joe.
Exactly that. We're really going to make it so that there's mentorship points. So for people who are submitting content or mentoring other people, we've got an LMS infrastructure so that people can run their own classes and upload their own classes. And all of that stuff is going to be free. So it's not, some crazy money-making scheme kind of thing. The whole thought process is let's flip the whole effing industry on its head. And let's just get back to focusing on being good at it. Not I'm an offensive guy, not I'm a defensive guy, I'm a security guy. Some days malware is pretty freaking cool. Some days reversing is pretty cool. Some days exploit dev is really freaking cool. And you just want to dig in and you want a place where no one's going to chastise you for being new or asking a stupid question. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Joe, from a hardcore technical perspective, where do you see some of the gaps in technical knowledge? Where are the biggest gaps for security professionals?
So the biggest theory that I've kind of worked on this last year is don't attack or secure something you don't understand. I would say the biggest issue facing our security professionals today is they oftentimes don't have the system administration's background, the network administration's background, or the programming background to understand the stuff that they're trying to secure or attack. And that's the real meat behind what InfoSec Addicts is about. By building all that courseware, not just how do I attack something, but literally, how do I build Linux with all these different components? How do I build Windows with all these different components? How do I attack it and how I secure it? So you're hitting dead on what is my real passion. I think that's the real core. So I'll tell this real quick story, and I'll make it 30 seconds. I was on a pen test last year, and I was trying to do the JBoss WAR upload exploit, and I couldn't get it to work. So I spun up a server in Amazon AWS, configured JBoss, got my exploit working, got this compiled code to work because there was no compiler on the target machine. Compiled my exploit code, got my privilege escalation to work, moved the exploit over, and then ran it, got root. So I was talking to one of my students about it, and one of the students and this has been a student who's been with me for a while, and he goes, Joe, you built a server on a pen test? And I kind of looked at him like, yeah. And he was like, you really built a server in the middle of the test? And I was like, well, I had to. And it kind of like dawned on me like, my God, that's what's missing.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what's missing.
Yeah, people, I think people, and I don't know, I'm getting older, and I'm kind of like getting curmudgeon-y and hang out with like people like Jack and Jeff, and I'm like, back in the day, like I had to build that stuff myself, and I feel like now people are kind of spoiled because they're like, oh, I can just go get this pre-configured image here, and when you say build Linux, like a lot of times you don't even have to build Linux, you're taking an image and putting it on an SD card, and then you're off to the races, right? Like, what happened to the good old days where we had to feed floppies in to put Linux on that,
Absolutely. But that's the whole goal. So we're making, right now we've built 3 classes, and the 3 classes, our Linux class is more comprehensive than the RHCE. Our Windows class is more comprehensive than the MCSA and MCSE. And our network class is more comprehensive than the CCNP. And those are our basic classes now. So it's build it.
Some might say that that's not saying anything, but
yeah, true.
Well, I would make that argument. I would make that argument for the bulk of the people out in the field. If you look at the majority of people who are actually doing security consulting today, a lot of those guys aren't like us. We live in our own little echo chamber, right? But when you get out and you look, because, I'm teaching this stuff all the time, and I'm finding that a lot of people have never configured a VLAN. Just never freaking done it.
That's kind of frightening.
A lot of people came straight into security, not like when we came up.
Right. No, that's cool. And yeah, to replicate that environment, Joe, I think is pretty profound. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's it. The second thing I'm working on is InfoSec Ops. So it's going to be a security conference that's going to be a practitioners conference. So second weekend of October, so it's infosecops.io. And the whole thought process behind it is to have a security conference purely for offensive people and defensive people. So 16 presentations, 8 offensive, 8 defensive, pure practitioners, red teamers, blue teamers, SOC analysts, malware analysts, guys talking about how to do what they do, like challenges they're facing at work and real solutions. No threat metrics, no security metrics, no risk assessment stuff. No like hodgepodge pie in the sky stuff, like real working stiffs talking about the things that they do at work, challenges that they're facing, and solutions that they're trying to apply to those problems. Commercial and open source solutions are applicable as long as it's stuff that a guy can implement on Monday after the conference. No pie in the sky R&D, no theoretical crap, like real working stiff type stuff.
And I love that. I think it's a real fresh approach to a conference, Joe. You and I have talked previously about this, and I applaud the effort. I think it's great. I think we need to see more of that, in our industry and more conferences like that are promoting. And I mean, let's face facts. A lot of us that develop those pie-in-the-sky presentations sometimes, myself included, right? Because I'm like, yeah, I can build that presentation. But then when I say, okay, I also need to have a technical hands-on presentation and show people how to do something, that one takes a lot longer to build, right? It's more research, it's more testing, it's more figuring stuff out, and it just takes longer.
And God forbid you have to do a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it took me, my recent, not technical hands-on presentation probably took me 50 or 60 hours to build. The technical one takes twice as long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I do think there's a real challenge for those of us who are working professionals, because when we go to security conferences, the majority of the presentations are research, or they're the hodgepodge pie in the sky stuff. So if you're a working IDS guy, if you're a working blue teamer, and you're like, hey, I want to do my job better, what do you do? So that's kind of the thought process behind it. I was kind of that whole FUBU, for us, by us kind of thing. Let's get all the nerds together beg them to take showers, but get them all in a room and say like, yo, man, how do you do this?
Right.
That's a really, really good point. Whenever I talk publicly, I try to always draw it back to practical application that people can actually use in the field, because I think there is absolutely a phenomenon of too many of us working kind of in this ethereal space where we're telling people that, hey, this stuff works. I've got my lab of one domain controller and 2 workstations, and by God, I can do this. And it's totally detached from reality.
Yeah, but we need more people like you guys. I mean, if you look at what's been going on with the Security Weekly over the years, you guys have had that tech segment has been probably one of the most popular things in our community, because there's so few places where you could go and you could get vendor neutral, like, here's how you do ABC. I mean, it's to be honest, it's just one of the hard things to find. And the rest of it is all YouTube videos with music that no one wants to hear. That's really hard to understand.
The intros, they're typing into a text file, like, what they want to say. Yeah. I've seen those.
So right. There are so many videos with Larry's making the appropriate backfill music right now. There are so many videos with the cheesy backfill.
And some of them have like hundreds of thousands of views too. Like,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And then what kind of makes you upset is like, how many MSO867 exploits can you watch in a YouTube video? Right? Like, at a certain point, can you give me something I can actually use? Right. So, I'm real appreciative of what you guys have been doing over the years. And I really I'm kind of hoping to extend it, kind of go my way, nerdy, but just kind of extend it. It's something that's for us, not corrupted by like, security metrics and risk assessment, man. I do enough of that at work.
Joe,
Nice.
Roughly how many penetration tests do you think you kind of average on a year that you do?
Probably 2 to 3 a month.
Yeah. Okay. So now, when you do them, we were in this segment last year, and I want to get your take on this because you're doing a lot of pen tests.
Sure.
Jabra, who works at Praetorian now, did this study across 75 pen tests, 75 customers, 100 pen tests. Came up with this list of like things that most companies get wrong that lead to complete control by an attacker of the organization. Like, not how you got in, but like, how I got domain admin and access to everything.
I got in,
right?
but then what? What happened from there? That mid-step.
The first 4 roughly kind of break down to authentication and authorization, right? All the Windows abuses for credentials, default weak passwords, Mimikatz, all those style attacks, WPAD and the extensions to that, right? The 5th one was network segmentation, or even application segmentation of some kind, right?
Sure.
Do you see that as well? I mean, is that, and I've talked to John Strand about this, as well as the others from BHIS. They seem to concur with Jabra's findings. Do you concur with that as well, that most of it is in mostly Windows environments and mostly really just abusing authentication and authorization?
Absolutely. If you really look at what people are doing with like Powersploit, Nashang, Empire, that's really where that world is going. It's all about credential management. It's really not about, throwing exploits all over the wire. So yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And shout out to Jabra, big ups. He used to work for me when I was at Rapid 7.
Nice. Oh, I forgot you were at Rapid 7. Yeah, okay.
Eons ago.
Yeah, so like a funny story, I'll tell you this one. Okay, so
yeah, we want funny stories.
Jabra, right? So when Jabra came out of Northeastern University, right?
Yep.
And anybody who's seen Jabra, even though he's a full-grown adult male, he looks like he's 12, right?
So true.
God's honest
Jabra,
truth, right?
love,
So
brother.
he was a junior in college, came on as an intern, right? So we sent him on a penetration test. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but it's freaking funny to me. So we sent him on this penetration test, and the CIO calls me. He's like, Mr. McCray, I have a issue. And I was like, sure, how can I help you? He's like, it's about the consultant that you sent here. And I'm like, well, something wrong? And, Josh Abraham, not Jabra.
Right.
And he goes, no. The consultant is very good. He's really proficient. We didn't even know he was a backtrack developer. He's quite technical. We're just afraid to have him brief the CEO. And I was like, well, what's wrong? And the guy, swear to God, tells me the CEO says he looks younger than his grandson.
Fast forward, and Donald Trump's son, 10 years old, can do anything with a computer.
No, don't go there.
And any 14-year-old could have hacked. Never mind.
I bet he.
Awesome.
Do you think he still gets that though? No, I'm just kidding.
No, like he's a director now. He's all
Yes.
big time now. Like every time I talk to him now, he's like all like, he's like moving on up
Yep,
now.
I grew up.
man.
I'm
But
13
I remember
now.
Jabber when he was fresh out of college.
He's not 12 anymore. He's 13.
So, Joe, let me ask you this, because you're teaching a lot of people too, and one of my fears is that as a defender, for all these organizations now that I've talked to, 3 organizations that do a lot of penetration tests, they all agree with Josh's finding, 4, including
Yep.
Larry, right?
Yep,
Larry's
absolutely.
vouched for this as well.
Absolutely.
So, like, I'm expanding the pool out, and they're all saying the same thing. So, like, what do we do to fix this problem? How do we get organizations to fix these issues within these Windows environments? What can we arm them with? What do we do to fix it?
So I've given customers a couple of options, right? So the first option is use group policy to implement host-based firewall rules, deploy a storage area network. That way we stop using map drives, right? Do not allow inter-workstation communication. So the biggest problem is when I spearfish user A, can I move laterally to user B? If you have a GPO that prevents inter-workstation communication, right, and you don't have email addresses attached to privileged accounts, right, you cut down on like 2/3 of the attack surface, right? So make every individual workstation an island, right, and then deploy a SAN. That way we stop using map drives. Map network drives are the devil of Windows networks, right? And then again, people don't want to move away from that stuff. You throw out the evil word SharePoint, but there's a reason why you have these types of technologies. It's not a technical problem. It's a way that people are used to working type of problem.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that point right there is why a lot of organizations don't implement the authentication controls within Windows environments. And John Strand and I talked about this in Enterprise Security Weekly, like in depth, like why, exactly what you can do to fix it, and then why people don't, right? And usually it's because it's a lot of work, or
they're not comfortable with it.
They're not comfortable with like operating that way, right? And like you said, Joe, that's not really a technical issue.
I got to win. I mean, Joe, you're just so right on target. I mean, I've said this to so many people. I was like, do micro-segmentation. If you don't get your segmentation out to the edge of the network, you're never going to stop the lateral movement problem in an environment. And you just hit the nail directly on the head.
Absolutely, guys. And, look, this is 17 years of pen testing for me, right? And how many times can you say patch management, configuration management, asset management?
Credential management.
I've been doing it for a long freaking time, and the message has not really changed in all those years.
Absolutely.
You remember the first pen test we did together?
Yeah, I do. Credentials.
Yep. Big guy swallows up little guy. Little guy runs Linksys WRT54G. Big guy does big Cisco firewall. Big guy says, you suck. Little guy says, no, we don't. Big guy pays for pen tests for both to prove who sucks. Big guy sucks. Little guy doesn't.
Default password on big guy.
Yeah.
Or easily, I think it was easily guessable.
Default password on their AIX system directly connected to the internet via Telnet, which contained all of their financials.
Yep.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic right there.
OPER, operator, which allowed you to get into the operator menu and change passwords, including changing the password for the root account, which you could log in remotely via Telnet. Yeah, I guess who did that one?
And I had a $40 billion bank where the domain admin password was hot dog.
That's so random.
$40 billion bank. Domain admin password was hot dog. Now the O's were zeros now.
Oh, then it's fine. Letters and numbers. That's good.
Hey, I gotta say,
So it was a lead.
I've got a curmudgeon-y question.
I was waiting for it.
I am an ex-pen tester. I stopped pen testing 13 years ago, but if you'd asked the question then, Paul, you would have gotten similar answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I dare say the solutions that we all see have been thrown out and presented to customers for nigh these 17, 20, 30 years. What makes you think this time around they're going to get it, that they're going to do anything different?
Right, and that's certainly one of the things that keeps me up at night today.
In my opinion, guys, I do think it's going to improve. And I know no one wants to hear it, but I think it's going to be the cloud and two-factor. As people move to all these different hybrid on-prem and off-prem solutions, and more stuff is handled via web services and, SPGML and all these different provisioning technologies, I do think you're going to see some of that stuff move away because people are going to be doing it with their phone. Like right now, every app I use is with two-factor. Like if I grab my phone, every app that I log into is with two-factor, and it's moving that way. I don't think it's moving fast, but I do think it's going there.
No, I agree, Joe, and I think privileged identity management is growing. I think that's going to be a hot area in 2017. I think it has to be for all the reasons that we mentioned, and I think the movement to cloud is certainly going to speed that along, coupled with two-factor and single sign-on, right? Because now you've got these users that need to log into 8 million different applications, and they're like, I can't manage all these passwords, and if I do, I need two-factor, and then if I had to do two-factor for every individual site, the users would literally riot outside of IT's office and burn it down. So those technologies combined are really where I see things going.
Yeah,
hopefully.
So Paul, just to kind of pile on there, I think that that's going to do to the pen testing community is it's going to drive us further and further to the client side, because I think the cloud side is going to be better and better secured, and the server side is already had made significant improvements, but now it's going to get to the point where it's standardized. And at the point where it's standardized and relatively secure, then I think all of the security action is going to be completely on the client side.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair assessment. And I can tell you, for me as a pen tester right now, I would say probably 75-80% of my pen testing today is applications. I probably do maybe 4 network pen tests a year. There's only a couple of firms out there still doing a lot of network pen testing. Most of us are on the app and mobile app, a lot of web services, a little bit of source code analysis here and there sprinkled in, but mostly web apps, a ton of web app testing.
Web app, I think, is going to remain a particularly lucrative area for some time, because we have new technology and involvement in that area. We got HTML5 that's introducing a lot of new vectors. We've got HTTP 2.0 that's coming in. I think there's going to be a lot of action in that space for some time to come.
Along those lines of web applications, and I know a lot of you pen testers, Larry, Joe, Joff, right? You test a lot of applications. Mm-hmm. There's this alphabet soup, and I feel like we're talking about the elephant in the room, right? The alphabet soup of RASP and DAST and SAST and IAST. IAST, I don't know how you say that.
And then add the MLs, the OPML and the SDML and the SGML and the...
Not to mention
XML.
Well, there's the MLs, but there's the defensive technologies, right, that have kind of grown out of WAF, right, and then morphed into all of these different hybrids of new technologies. Like IAST is like a hybrid of DAST and RASP. I think I got that right. But what is your assessment of these technologies? Have you done testing of applications that are using any of these technologies?
I don't know of anybody that's put any of these in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've definitely run against it. And I would tell you, as a tester, it's really not any different. Look, if you've done web services testing and you're comfortable with, what the SOAP and REST envelope looks like when you crack it open in Burp Suite, when you load your fuzz list, it really doesn't matter what the protocol stream is. So to you as a tester, it's the same. It's just a bunch of web service calls You look at the API documentation on the web and go, okay, these are what the parameters look like. Load your fuzz list and Burp Suite, and away you go. Like there's no significant change. And then
All right,
when they open
let
up
me
all
let me
this,
rephrase my answer. I don't know that anybody's implemented these because I guess my testing methodology hasn't changed because they have one.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things, right?
Right.
Joe's talking about more advanced APIs and applications. What we're talking about, too, is defensive technologies, or the defensive technologies, right? The RASP that's sitting inside the web application server actively looking for attacks. Is that slowing you down? Are you noticing that, or are you not testing against apps that have that?
Yeah, and I
no,
have
that's what I'm saying. I am, right?
Yeah.
So, that quote-unquote hardened, robust application frameworks that they're now integrating. I've done 2 against the one that HP created.
Yep.
And it's not significantly any different. It doesn't change the way that I test.
Right. Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Where, like, look for parameter passing, I inject in all the parameters, I see how the app behaves. If the app behaves kind of funny, then you go, okay, now I'm going to load a bunch of different encodings and see how it handles it. So it's functionally no different than a web application firewall. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
From the tester's perspective.
Right. No, that's good advice. Joff, did you want to weigh in on that too?
Yeah. Well, I did. I wanted to ask a follow-on question, and that is this. I myself am doing quite a lot of mobile API testing these days, which is, I think, a growing area in the industry as a lot of web apps particularly get migrated directly to a mobile platform, be it Android, be it iPad, iPhone. And one of the things that I found happening is that there are crossover vulnerabilities that emerge, whereby you may be able to inject some invalid data into the iPhone or Android application that inadvertently negatively affects the web application. What's your perspective on that, Joe?
Horrible input validation on mobile apps. It's just that simple. At the end of the day, the developer writing the mobile app, generally their frameworks don't support all this robust stuff like it does for normal web app development. If you look at a guy who's writing a J2EE app or a .NET app, as soon as he jumps over to J2ME, there's nowhere near the support or libraries for it. So that's why you see clear text passwords. That's why you see horrible use of cache. That's why you see all that API injection type stuff. No input validation. Stuff's really easy to enumerate. I think the mobile platforms, and I think the embedded, and I think things like Smart Grid, I think that stuff is going to be ripe target attack space for years to come.
I'd make the argument on the mobile side is that the folks that are developing a lot of the mobile stuff don't come out of the traditional and more advanced web application development, so they forget a lot of this type of stuff, and they say, well, I'll just implement an API to do this thing and not have to worry about any of this stuff, because you can't enter these things on a mobile app until
and oftentimes it could be a different team.
Man, that mobile app development is cheap. I mean, if you look at it, you get a lot of customers. So me as a tester, you'll get a lot of customers when he gets a price tag of like $8-10 for a mobile app test. A lot of times the customer will say, look, we didn't pay that much to build it.
Yeah.
Right?
Clearly.
They outsourced it to country ABC. They got the thing dev for like $2,300.
Yep.
And
then you test it for that $8 or $10 and clearly you didn't pay that much for it because it's crap.
Absolutely. So it's a real tough thing, right? So I really think what companies like Fortify and Veracode and all those, I think over the long term they're going to gobble up that market because they're going to be able to offer, frameworks that can test these mobile apps at functionally like $500, and then it'll have a menu button where you say, if your application has PII or processes credit cards, do you want manual inspection for another additional $2,000 kind of thing. That's where I think it's going. Talking to the guys over at HP and talking to the guys over at IBM, these guys are now doing web app tests. A normal web app test is like 2 days for them. Intensive is like 5. I mean, white hat security, the same thing. It's that huge assembly line. Like, you got one guy who just tests for SQL injection all day. Another guy who just tests for cross-site scripting. And it's pure assembly line. They move your app through the assembly line of testers. Most of them are outsourced to other countries. So it's definitely changing the world, the dynamics for those of us who are like real working stiff pen testers.
Yeah, that's actually a scary and motivating statement at the same time. I mean, for us it means up your game, and we've all known that in the industry that we need to understand and realize that many of the things we do are completely automatable or assembly line orientated things, and you just stated it. So it's absolutely a true statement.
One of the things that is being more and more automated today is these, I call them two-stage attacks. It's a really bad name for it, but essentially PHP Mailer was an example, that vulnerability, right, where you had to submit an email through PHP Mailer. It had a special PHP code in the body, right? Then you had to wait. And that wait time is like, I don't know how long you had to wait, and then it had to get processed. And then something is written to the log, and you have to either trigger it to read the log, I think was the attack vector. Once it read that log, then your exploit would run. So how often are you guys seeing that in testnet where like that you submit something and then like somewhere down in the assembly line either you have to trigger something or the application has to trigger something else, completely separate process, and then your exploit runs?
Yeah, that log file injection, environ exploit injection.
Yep.
Whatever it's called, where like you do your PHP thing and then it like tries to read the log file to execute it. Asynchronous, not two-stage.
Asynchronous, yeah, that's a much better term for it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, asynchronous.
So are you guys testing for that? And you're finding a lot of vulnerabilities that are like that aren't being picked up by the technologies you were talking about, Joe, and the automated scanner.
If it's applicable, definitely we go for it. I would say the biggest thing that I would say for most testers like us, the old school guys, what I'm trying to do with my pen testing practice is use pen testing as the entry to the customer and then transition into security advisory. Helping them, like interim CIO, helping their CISO, like pick what products to buy kind of stuff. Like, I just don't think...
Transition to consulting, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. So it's just you're an advisor. There's not enough value for us as a tester. It's kind of like you prove your chops with the test. And then those customers, like I've got customers who've been customers for like 4 and 5 years. It started as a pen test. Now I'm like doing calls and sitting in on vendor pitches with them. That's where I think it's going. Old guard like us, that's what I think our consulting is going to be, because there's no way we're ever going to be able to compete with HP, Veracode, 2-day pen test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can I ask a question on that? That actually triggers an interesting thought. You speak of customers that are longer term, and I find this with us at Black Hills, we have a similar pattern. We get through the initial sort of shock value stuff, right, where you sort of walk them through the the you really don't have your act together kind of conversation. I mean, I don't mean to be brutal, but that frankly that's the case with a lot of folks. But after a year or two, then your customer matures to the point where you're like, okay, now you're ready. If you want a pen test, really you're ready for a red team kind of assessment, and or like you said, Joe, you're ready for just purely sort of a hand-in-hand friend consulting kind of engagement with the defense mitigation strategies that you pick.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you hit a really good point, right? So all these guys who speak at these conferences do all these really cool red team presentations. And I've never had a red team engagement with a customer that's been a customer for less than 3 years. Like you have to build that trust for them to let you start doing that thorough of a test. Like they really need to like you. So the big thing that I'm looking for in that world is trying to get people to understand that I'm just trying to do all this network or web app tests so I can display value. And then bring me in for everything. Bring me in for source code. Bring me in for strategy. Bring me in for threat modeling. Let's get in there and let's do all that other kind of stuff. And, all of us who are nerds, I hate to say it, you're going to need to speak KPIs. You're going to have to learn that business talk and learn dollar cost averaging and total cost of ownership and SLAs. And you've got to be able to help the customer really, really, really. Like John Strand did this presentation, like, what was it called? Like how not to suck at pen testing?
Yeah.
It's not what it was
That's
called.
right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and like he kept going through so many steps where all he kept talking about was adding value, right? Trying to help the customer, and that's our job now. That's really it.
Joe, you said that.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Sorry, Paul. That's absolutely our job, and that's really the important focus, right? A lot of us, nerdy, geeky types, we get kind of sidetracked by the idea that of the next most elite, crazy hack. But ultimately, the idea is that we're adding value and enabling them to complete their business successfully, and that's where we've got to keep our focus.
Yeah, and that's tough, right? And I learned that out of necessity, right? Because they won't bring you back if you're not adding value, right? So another thing that I really ran into for a lot of you newbie pen testers who are trying to start your own company is people who say things like, well, our auditors ask us to hire a different firm each year. And that one really nailed me for a long time. So I met a guy who was actually director of information security at a bank that I was testing. And he told me to do that, where he said, change your proposal so that it's got 3 pricing options, a 1-year and a 3-year and a 3-year fixed price. So, you give them the 1-year price, and the 1-year price is really high. You give them the 3-year price, and the 3-year price is much better. And then you give them a 1-year pricing. So basically encourage the customer that, man, if they buy it for 3 years, the pricing is better. And I can tell you, man, that changed my business. Like was going out of business prior to doing that, like changed my business. Like that. And, you'd really be surprised of the number of guys who are willing to help. Guys like Dave Kennedy, I always found him really good for giving advice. Just tons and tons of people. John Strand, even though we always make the joke that, don't Google him because he's a male model, an underwear model.
Do Google him.
Well, it's interesting. What you're describing is your business model is what we were trying to do when I was doing pen testing. We ended up calling it vulnerability assessment 15 years ago, 20 years ago. One of the reasons why I stopped doing pen testing was the frustration of going back to customers year after year and finding the same problems, and they weren't fixing anything.
Makes the report easier.
It certainly does, but my idea was, okay, there's got to be a better way to get the point across to these customers that they need to be doing something different, because what we're doing, the scare tactics, the egg in their face, putting up the passwords of the admins on the presentation slide, or the CIO's password, all the embarrassing, all the tricks were not working. I set off to try to find a different way to try to educate the customers, much of what you're describing in terms of building trust, establishing the relationships. I used to recommend to customers, 3 to 5 years, you should switch up your pen testers. I mean, that's good for you. You do want to have several years to build the trust, but at some point, a fresh set of eyes is really in their best interest. So what I had always proposed doing was trying to find a group of companies that were, pen testers, vulnerability assessors, security experts of a particular caliber that could be, basically have a consortium and just kind of round robin their best customers, so you knew you were giving your favorite customers, passing them off to good hands, and vice versa. Never got off the ground, but I still think
I love that idea, Jeff. In fact, I've floated that idea previously.
I would say, Jeff, that unfortunately your timing kind of missed, I think, because I think today the idea that you mentioned is actually happening in so many ways. Those of us in the industry that know each other. We absolutely have customers, and we're well aware of it, that talk to multiple of our peers that we are fully knowledgeable about and do rotate around. And it's really happening today. At the time you were doing pen testing, perhaps not, but it is certainly happening today. And I would also add to the comment that I don't know if Black Hills is special in this respect, but we have had customers that have improved massively, and we're not finding the same old vulnerabilities year after year, and we're having to up our game significantly. And to me, that is an extremely positive result.
I mean, I used to stop pen tests. If we were getting in too easily, if something was just blatantly bad, I would stop the engagement and say, "You guys don't need a pen test. You need remedial help. You need some basic education on how to do security."
You do not need a red team.
Joe, I want to go back to something you said earlier along the lines of this conversation where you're working with the customer and you'll sit through vendor pitches with the customer. To me, that is a tremendous amount of value to the customer, especially you in that particular situation, right? Like you've done a pen test for them, you understand their environment, maybe you've done some other projects for them and helped them out, so you kind of understand how they work. And now you're going to sit through a vendor pitch with them. That is just, first, awesome. Second, I want to know about some of the best vendor pitches who had products to back up their pitch. Who in your mind? Let's name names. I'm not afraid to name names. Let's name names. Who has impressed you? That's going to impress me and our listeners too.
Oh man.
Nobody. Next question.
No, I take that back. No, I thought Tanium did really good. I thought Carbon Black did really good. I thought. Don't laugh. I thought ArcSight did really good.
Interesting.
And again, I think the difference is, I used to be a vendor, so it's a matter of, these guys, they go see so many CIOs now, and CIOs and CISOs are not new to this anymore. They've been buying these products for 10 plus years. So they go in a lot of times now fully aware of what coverage their product does and does not do. So what you're dealing with is, it's not that you don't have coverage, it's just if you want that, you need, product 1A and 1B. And if you want that, you need product 1A, 1B, and 1C. And it just makes the price way over the top. But it's very rare now that I see an enterprise solution that just completely misses the bar. It's usually just a matter of alphabet soup and their whole product suite that you end up getting stuck with. And then the second tier problem that follows on after that is, well, we already have a product that does ABC, your product does XYZ. How do they talk?
Yeah.
That's when it starts to get really nasty.
Right. And those two products could solve similar or different problems depending on your perspective, right? Like, I think everyone thinks they think of the problem differently, they think of the solution differently, and wading those waters is incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I wanted to touch on one thing, and I might be stepping on some toes here, but bear with me. It seems like in our industry, if we're looking for experts that can help companies out, customers out, it seems like most of the conversations around pen testing companies or vendors. I think hopefully there's another set of individuals out there that I will loosely call consultants that are vendor neutral, hopefully. And I'm working on a theory, and again, this is one of the reasons why I walked away from pen testing, because I think pen testing, at least in the early days, and I would argue it's still true today, especially given what we talked about the usual findings, pen testing is not a cost-effective way of getting companies to think about security. There is that sort of, I forget how you referred to it, Joe, but earning your chops or proving your mettle. To say, yeah, we really do know security and we can help you out. It's certainly the common entree into companies, but in my 10 years of doing PCI, I think one of the reasons I was successful was I wasn't coming in as a pen tester, but I certainly understood the pen testing security process. Once I got past could get people past, oh, you're not just a stupid auditor, you actually know what you're talking about. And I was completely vendor neutral. I was completely coming at it with their best interests in mind. As a consultant, as an advisor, I could help companies try to do the right things, invest in the right things, think about security differently. I don't know that pen testing companies as a whole approach it like that.
No, they don't.
There's obvious exceptions.
I'll tell you that right now. No, they don't.
And that's not how most pen testers or people that want to become pen testers, because it's cool and fun, it's sexy, and get into it. I wanted to mention to you, Joe, you're not aware of it, but I spent the last year giving a talk called The Art of the Jedi Mind Trick, which was simply trying to teach effective communication skills to the community, because A, we have a reputation for not being too sociable, B, we don't get to practice it very often, and C, we're just not good at it. And the message was, if we know all the answers and our customers and our companies that we work for are still having problems, maybe we're the problem because we're not getting the point across.
Yeah, and that was a painful thing that I went through personally. It probably about 2007, I had a really pretty crazy pen test where I finally realized that I wasn't helping. I was one of those testers who used to laugh at my customers. I'd be like, I got dumb and admin on the first day,
Right.
And then the following year, come back and re-exploit the same vulnerabilities, only to really figure out that I was the idiot. Like, I could not convey the criticality of the stuff I was identifying. And I really didn't know how to help the admins make things better. So it was a maturation process. And, I hate to say it, we all have to go through it, man. You guys have been doing it for a while. You're really mature in this space. Our problem is we got to get all the other nerds out of the echo chamber.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We got to get them out of it, man.
Yeah, Joe, you're again right on point. One of the biggest challenges is, I think, both reporting and verbal communication, whether it's written or verbal. It has to be really, really clear what the business and operational impact is, right? It is absolutely not about the leet hack. The business end of the operation could give a rat's ass about the leet hack. They don't care.
Well, and it's not good enough to say, dude, I rooted your box, or dude, I got domain admin. They don't know what that means. They don't understand the implications of that.
Right, and justifiably, they don't need to, right? No, what they care about is business impact analysis, right? So why do I need to do this patch management deployment? Why do I need to do this asset management deployment? Why do I need to do this configuration management deployment? Do we use tools that we have on hand? Do we hybrid, cobble some Frankenstein, some stuff together? Do we bring in a vendor? That's really our value.
Well, the fun part of being a QSA and doing the PCI stuff was when they asked that question, I could say, because I told you to.
Joe.
Otherwise, you fail.
You had a club, Jeff.
Joe, have you answered the 5 questions on Security Weekly? Did we do that the last time you were on the show?
If not, he's got to do it again.
All right, Joe, you ready? 3 words to describe yourself.
Black, loves hacking, loves basketball, doesn't sleep.
If you were a serial killer, words. What would be your weapon of choice?
My cell phone.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
WTF.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
Second, of course.
Of course. Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Oh, my God. Emmanuel Lewis and Halle Berry.
Wow. Yes.
Damn.
Wow.
A thoughtful man.
What you talking about, Willis?
Your celebrity mom is hot.
Your celebrity dad is short.
Your celebrity mom is really hot.
And she was in like a hacking, like in air quotes, like hacking movie.
Hacking movie.
Swordfish.
That's right.
She was in Swordfish.
Well, Joe, So you've got what are the two websites that you mentioned earlier? It was
InfosecAddicts.com, InfosecAddicts.com. Second one is InfosecOps.io. That's the conference in Miami. Second week in Miami, pure operators conference, deep technical. Bring the nerds. Bring the nerds. We're going to go hard.
I like that. It's kind of like Public Enemy, Bring the Noise, but it's Bring the Nerds. You should totally have the shirt that has that. Yeah.
Do you want the nerds to learn how to speak well?
We'll do another conference for that. This is
That's a totally different conference, Jeff.
This conference is shower optional.
Joe McCray.
Jeff, I think you just got shut down, brother.
Thank you very much, Joe. Nice chatting with you.
Throw it out there.
You guys take care.
We're going to take a short break, come back with a technical segment. Stay tuned.